Chapter 14. In the Fire Break. He was right, of course. I did not know what I was getting myself into. Years later, I silently thanked him for forcing me to postpone such decisions until I was old enough to think for myself, but at the time it was unforgivable, and it was typical of his behavior during those days. He had no boat crew to command, no income to manage, no trips to plan, not even a dining table to preside over. He would putter blandly along, then suddenly, unexpectedly, as if to remind himself that he was still in charge of something, would burst out like that, his intentions right, but his manner stubborn and relentless, forcing distances between us. But as his youngest child, I had grown up blessed with special attentions. Now, more and more, I found myself getting caught off from it. When I needed reassurance, I would get it from Woody or Chizu, or from Mama, who had more of herself to give by this time. Then one afternoon there came a moment when I was cut off from both of them, Papa and Mama together. It wasn't loneliness I felt or isolation. They were still within reach. Rather, it was just that first brief flicker of total separateness. It had occurred to me anywhere we might have been living. I had reached the age. This scene happened to be set in one of the fire breaks at Manzanar. My oldest sister Eleanor figures in it. She lay in a camp hospital trying to give birth to a baby she had thought she'd be having in Reno, Nevada, where she and her husband Shig had been relocated in 1943. Through friends, they had found a house there, and Shig lined up a job in a restaurant. Early in 1944, the government decided that Nisei should be eligible for selective service, like all other Americans. A few months later, Shig was drafted. Eleanor, pregnant, couldn't find neither work nor money enough to pay for having a baby. She couldn't stay in Reno, and she couldn't go with Shig to the Army's training camp in Louisiana, so she voluntarily re-entered camp. When she went into the hospital, it was a great time of anxiety in our family. Two of my other sisters had born children there. They had both hemorrhaged badly, and blood plasma was in short supply, our needs being low on the wartime priority list. One sister might have died had not Woody provided blood by direct transfusion. In the case of a sister-in-law of ours who had miscarried and hemorrhaged, no one was able to arrest it in time, and she just bled to death in her hospital bed. These memories were very much with us. Papa, in particular, was worried. Eleanor was his oldest daughter, and this was her first child. Her husband had gone to Germany with an infantry division. Now she was struggling through the second day of a difficult labor. He and Mama were taking turns sitting with her, and what I remember late the second afternoon is Mama running towards us from the other side of other side of the fire break. I was walking with Papa as he started out for the hospital, and here she came, small and running, all bundled up. It was December, shouting, "Ko, Ko," making little puffs of frost in the icy air. I looked at Papa, and his face had filled with terror. He tried to run to meet her, but could barely keep his stride. His look filled me with terror, too. I was sure Eleanor had died in the hospital. Our fear must have held back Mama's progress. It seemed we watched her run for minutes across that stretch of cleared sand. There was room enough for a football game or an entire parade. In my eyes then, it was a threatening openness, a no man's land. We met her in the sand. Mama, breathless, sat small in front of him, looking up, saying, "Ko, Ko, it's a boy." His face gave way, his eyes filled. "A boy." "Yes." "And Eleanor?" "Yes, okay. Okay, they're both okay." His tears let go, unchecked. Mama was already crying. She began to talk excitedly, jabbering the details. As the news sunk in, my fear was replaced by an awed detachment. The burden fell away, leaving me afloat, and I was a spectator, witnessing the nearest to a love scene I would ever see between them. My own perception removed me from it. I was more awed than aware, but I knew whatever I was watching was somehow both tender and profound, with an intimacy that made me invisible to them. Papa put an arm around her, needing her support. He was wearing the rust-colored turtleneck sweater he used to take on fishing trips, the one she had knitted for him before the war. Now, as she talked, the fingers of one hand played over its yarn as if inspecting her own workmanship, while the late sun turned his rusty sweater dark shades of orange. They stood there in the great expanse of the fire break, far out from the rows of barracks, weeping with relief and happiness, talking quietly, just the two of them.